Good morning. We'll just wait a second here while other people connect. It's taking a few moments for people to connect. Okay, there are a couple of people who are not muted. If everyone can just take a look at their microphones and mute themselves. Okay, so 11 participants. We must be getting close to the end of the semester. It seems like every one of these lectures gets less and less people attending them. So thank you guys for taking the time to log on and go through this with me. It beats sitting here talking to myself. I want to go through a couple of things. Oh, somebody is not muted, and I can't see who it is. Maybe just take one quick look at your audio. Just make sure that you're muted. Okay, I just want to do a quick screen share here before we get started. I have to find this. Just bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, you guys should now see my DC Connect, right? Okay, so I'm assuming you can see my DC Connect. So last week, last Friday, we did a 2-hour case study of the waste generated from an industrial facility and how those wastes would be characterized and how we would do certain calculations so that the releases of the individual components of those wastes could be reported to databases such as the MPRI. So homework 4 is now there. The course was originally set up that homework 4 was supposed to be it was supposed to be a homework on sustainability, but I wanted to kind of take us more towards a technical look at industrial waste and waste generation. So I posted the assignment this morning. It's under homework 4, and it's essentially waste characterization and MPRI release calculations. So we went through all of this last week. So in order to do this, I mean, there's a couple of ways you can do this, right? You can look at the case study slides. They are now posted in DC Connect, and you can kind of walk through that to show you how you would tackle these problems. Just be aware that especially when you're dealing with the sludge, the outcome of the sludge in this particular example is different from what it was during last week's lecture. So you do need to walk through it so in order to clarify it. But essentially, I've given you 3 problems. Problem 1, dealing with the wastewater treatment sludge. I've given you some information about the sludge. Has a pH of 9.2, a slump of 68 millimeters, disposed of 247 metric tons in 2020. Then I've given you the results of 3 chemical analysis that was done on randomly selected sludge samples. So the chemical analysis has given us an idea of what we have in there for moisture content, the chromium, the nickel, and the lead content of the sludge. And more importantly, it's given us the results of toxicity characteristic leaching procedure analysis. So this is what we in the industry call a TCLIP, TCLP analysis that gets done on materials for the disposal purposes. It's giving you 3 TCLIP analysis results. And then it's I've asked 5 questions. So what is the waste class of the sludge? What is the waste characterization of the sludge? What is the hazardous waste number for the sludge? What are the land disposal treatment requirements for chromium, nickel, and lead in this waste? And how much chromium, nickel, and lead are disposed of in this waste stream? All right. So essentially, you're going to take all this information and use it to calculate, the volume of each one of those metals in the sludge that's disposed of. And then we're going to take a look at the waste sulfuric acid, the waste characterization for this one, right? And the results of 3 samples that tells us the sulfuric acid percentage, the concentration of chromium, nickel, and lead in each one of them. So it's same thing again. I want you to tell me what the waste class of the acid is, what the waste characterization of the acid, what is the hazardous waste number, land disposal treatment requirements, and how much chromium, nickel, and lead are disposed of. Okay, so then the third problem from your assessment of the 2 wastes, provide the following: the total amount of sulfuric acid, the total amount of lead, total amount of chromium, and the total amount of nickel disposed of in 2020. So I've given you some helpful hints, right? The TCLP analysis results for the sludge tell you how much of each contaminant leached from the waste, not the total amount of the contaminants in the sample. To determine the waste characteristic, use figure 3 of the waste generator guidance manual. So a copy of that is in DC Connect, or it will be for you to use. To determine the waste class, use the list of waste classes found at this web address. To assess TCLIP analysis results, use Schedule 4, leachate quality criteria of Regulation 347. And to determine the hazardous waste number, use column 1 of Schedule 1 and Schedule 5 of Regulation 347. And to determine land disposal restriction requirements, use column 5 and column 6 of Schedules 1 and 5 of Regulation 347. So when I put this together, I kind of realized that we haven't really taken much of a look at the hazardous waste number that's associated with some of these wastes. So I think what we'll do right now is we'll take a look at, just give me 1 second here. Okay, so we have 2 people who are unmute, sorry, I'm trying to turn somebody's microphone off. Could everyone just take a look at their microphone, and anyone who does not have anyone who has their microphone on, just mute it. Hold on 1 second. Matthew and Melissa, if you guys can hear me, can you guys mute yourselves?
Oh my gosh.
I'm just let me just, there has to be a way, there's a way here for me to do this, but I just I don't understand why. Just if everybody could just take a look at their screens and just make sure that you're muted. It looks like everybody is muted now. So, okay. Okay. All right. I think we're good now that we're over that bit of distraction. So as I think I was in the process of saying, I don't think we've really taken a look at in any great detail any of these schedules. So I want to take a quick look at them. I think I'm going to have to. You guys can now see my screen where we have the schedules from the regulation, right? Aaron, just throw it in the text, the chat, if you can see my screen with schedules from the regulation. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So these are the schedules. This is Schedule 1. When you're dealing with the TCLIP analysis, you're going to use Schedule 4. So let me just scroll down here to Schedule 4. As you can see, some of these schedules are pretty big. I guess this is Schedule 4, and what Schedule 4 gives us is our leachate quality criteria. So essentially, what this does is this gives us a whole bunch of contaminants, and then over in the column to the right, it gives us concentrations. And these are TCLIP concentrations. So essentially, these are concentrations of material that would leach from a sample when it's subject to a leaching test. And if we look at boron, for example, we see that there's a value of 500 for boron. So the key to this schedule is if you do a TCLIP analysis and you've done an analysis for boron and your TCLIP concentration is 350, you're below the criteria, so it's not a leachate toxic material. But if your analysis result is 650, you've exceeded the concentration, and your waste is leachate toxic waste. So that is how you would use Schedule 4 to determine if you're dealing with a leachate toxic waste or not. Interestingly, if you scroll down through this, you will notice that nickel does not appear on the list of leachate toxic substances. That's why there's no value given for nickel in that example that I've given you. If we can look at chromium just for a second, you can see that this column here gives us a number of D007. D007 is a hazardous waste number that can be associated with a waste that contains chromium. Okay, so this is one area where this is one schedule where you will use it for your TCLIP analysis, and you can use it to get a hazardous waste number for various contaminants. If we scroll back up to Schedule 1, Schedule 1 gives us various waste types along with a hazardous waste number. So if you were to look here, for example, F006, wastewater treatment sludges from electroplating operations except for the following. So that F006, that would be the hazardous waste number for that particular waste. If I can scroll back down to Schedule 5. If you look at Schedule 5, Schedule 5 gives you hazardous waste numbers for various characteristic wastes. So if you have a corrosive waste and you don't find it up in Schedule 1 as a listed waste with an F number, you can look down here and you can see that a corrosive characteristic waste would be a D002 waste, right? And how we read the column 5 and column 6 is that this will give us a treatment code or a concentration. So if we were to look for a corrosive waste, right, it's the treatment code is DEACT, which essentially means deactivate the waste or neutralize it and meet Schedule 6 standards, right? So in Schedule 6, if you scroll down to Schedule 6, you will find that Schedule 6 deals with the LDR requirements. And this is them here, right? Schedule 6. So if there's specific contaminants in that corrosive waste, for example, chromium, then that waste would have to be treated to, so I can get down to, not picking up chromium here for whatever reason. But let's just look at any. Okay, so it'll be in table 2 of this schedule, right? But if you have chromium for an aqueous waste, it would have to contain 2.77 milligrams per liter or less. If it's a solid waste, it would have to contain 0.60 milligrams per kilogram in order for it to meet the LDR. So I'm looking at Aaron's question. So if we look at these hazardous waste numbers, these codes essentially follow the US EPA code, and usually what happens with these hazardous waste codes is waste carriers usually assign them for facilities because they're more experienced at at selecting the hazardous waste number. So I guess the key to this is to not to get the hazardous waste number confused with the waste class number, which may be 122C for corrosive waste. You don't want to get the hazardous waste number confused with that. So I'm hoping that that you guys will be able to take a run at this. As I say, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can look at the lecture slides that lays out most of the calculations that you would have to do. You could look at the recording from last week's lecture where I go through how those calculations are done. And if you're really struggling, you can send me an email, and we'll see if we can resolve any issues that that you're having with it. So, any questions about that? Any questions about the about that assignment? No, no questions. So the one thing I would like you to do with this assignment is to actually show me the calculations that that you do. I just want to be sure that you guys are calculating these things properly. That you're looking at significant figures, and that you're canceling out your units properly, so that you get to the correct answer. So. When is it due? That's a very good question. I think I made it due for November. I was going to say November 18th, but that wouldn't be very good. Let me see if I can. Let me see when we have. I'll just quickly check this. It is due on November 26th. So anybody have any issues with November 26th? I do know that you guys are doing your presentations next Thursday and Friday. So have any of you guys started? Has everybody started preparing for your presentations? Has anyone not started? Stick your hand up if you've not started. Nope. Okay. So there, there are some people. So a couple of people put their hand up. I'm hoping that these are people putting their hands up because they've started. Curtis is asking if it's alphabetical going by last name or first name. So it's going to be alphabetical going by your last name. So you can relax a little bit, Curtis. You'll be down the list. So it looks like a fair bunch of you have not started on this. So I'm hoping you're a lot like me and work well under pressure. If any of you're struggling with a subject to do this on, if any of you are struggling, with the subject or just anything to do with it, send me an email and we can I can maybe answer by email, or we can set up a quick chat. Okay, so they're going to occur on November 25th and November 26th. And then the following Friday, we're going to have a guest speaker who's going to talk to us about the Covanta Energy from waste facility located in Curtis. And we have 3 other modules to get through before we can have our last exam. So I'm thinking we'll get through it, at least one of those modules today and tomorrow, potentially 2 full modules, which will leave us only one module to do before we have to be looking at the final exam. Okay, all right. Any questions? Nope, no questions. So let's start taking a look at our next module, which is transportation of industrial wastes. So I just want to, I'm going to just one thing I want to do here. All right. I'm going to have to leave. I'm just going to have to do these without going into slideshow mode. Okay, but this module is the transportation of industrial waste. Very key item for people who end up working in industrial facilities and have the responsibilities for making sure that industrial waste is shipped and transported properly from their facility. So an overview of this component is we're going to look at the generator registration requirements, waste carriers, waste manifest generator requirements, and waste manifest carrier requirements. So we've looked at some of these in more detail in some of the earlier lectures. I mean, we certainly looked at generator requirements and generator registration, but we will look at them in a bit more detail here. So our learning objectives, after this, we should be able to describe the requirements for the movement of liquid industrial and hazardous waste in Ontario, complete a waste manifest, describe the requirements for the registration of generators, carriers, and receivers of liquid industrial and hazardous waste, outline the safety requirements for the transportation of dangerous goods, describe how industrial waste generated in Ontario can be transported legally beyond the provincial national borders, and describe international agreements related to the movement of industrial waste. And the example that's given there is the Rotterdam Convention. I'm just curious if anybody can answer this question. I'm just going to throw it out there and we'll see if anyone can actually answer it. But what is the definition of liquid industrial waste? So waste in Ontario you can go through that whole flow chart and it does not meet any of the requirements for waste generation. But then you also have to look at this from the perspective of it being a liquid industrial waste. Any of you guys remember what essentially the definition of a liquid industrial waste is? No, it doesn't look like anybody's willing to venture a stab at that. So, I mean, essentially, a liquid industrial waste is Aaron give a general definition of it. Anything that doesn't pass the slump test, and I mean that is the regulatory definition of it. It has to meet the the limits of the regulation 347 slump test. So any waste that has a slump of 150 millimeters or more is a liquid industrial waste. And there are many wastes from industrial facilities that their characteristics and the materials within the waste don't necessarily make it a hazardous waste, but they still become applicable under the regulation because they're in liquid form. And that definition of liquid form is if it has a slump more than 150 millimeters or not. Okay. Okay, so from the generator point of view, what is a waste generator? A waste generator is the operator of a waste generation facility. More specifically, it includes the original generator of the waste, such as a manufacturing facility that produces the waste, the operator of a waste removal service, a municipal hazardous and or special waste depot, or any other type not listed in the regulation. So, I mean, it's essentially any place that produces a waste, and that can be covered by Regulation 347. Waste generators are required to complete generator registration reports. That's information provided to the ministry on initial registration and every year thereafter by the waste generator, either electronically or on paper, about the wastes generated at the waste generation facility. And we took a look at that earlier on when we looked at the HWIN site. Generator registration reports are now pretty well exclusively done under the HWIN system. I am not aware of any situations where you could actually submit your generator registration report on paper anymore. It's all done electronically through the HWIN facility. And generator registration fees, again, done under HWIN, but associated with the initial or annual generator registration report that consists of the following three components: the base fee component, the manifest component, and the tonnage component. So every waste generator in Ontario has to pay an annual registration fee, which is the base fee component, which I believe is $50. Then the manifest component, I believe that's right now sitting at $5 every time a manifest is used, and the tonnage component. So there is a fee for every ton of material that's shipped on those manifests. So these generator registration fees, while the actual registration fee is fairly insignificant for a large industrial facility, the actual manifest and tonnage components of the fees can add up to significant amounts of money on an annual basis. Prior to HWIN coming about, there was no manifest fee or tonnage fee. This was something that came about with the implementation of HWIN. Okay, so these are where we find the regulatory requirements for waste generators. It's Section 18 of Ontario Regulation 347, and it essentially lays out the very specific requirements. So every generator who operates a waste generation facility shall submit an initial generator registration report to the director. So it's every facility that generates a waste is required by Section 18.1 to fill out that initial generator registration report, or GRR. Every report referred to in subsection 1 or 4 shall comply with the manual and shall contain such data, analysis, and information as will enable the director to satisfy himself or herself as to the quality and nature of the waste. So we have looked extensively at the manual, especially last week where we did that case study. When they talk about the manual, they're talking about the waste generator manual that's available on the government website, and we're going to be using Figure 3 from that manual in order for you guys to do your next homework assignment. So upon receipt of initial generator registration report, the director shall issue to the generator a generator registration document with a generator registration number and the applicable waste numbers accepted by the director. So that when you file that initial GRR report, The ministry then gives us a generator registration number, which is those numbers that start with ON that we looked at extensively in the Microsoft Access databases that we were downloading from the H1 site and looking at. So those ON numbers, I think it's ON, and there's 6 or 7 digits after that, and also the waste numbers that have been accepted for you to ship the waste. And you cannot ship waste in Ontario unless you have that generator registration number and the associated registered waste numbers. Subsection 4, where there is a change from the information submitted in the initial generator registration report in respect to name, address, or telephone number, or additional subject waste, or significant change in the description or the physical or chemical characteristics of the waste, the generator must submit a supplementary generator registration report to the director. And this is where we see where the ministry comes out and they conduct inspections, waste inspections of industrial facilities. They bring along a copy of your of the H1 generator registration reports, and they do an in-depth audit of the facility to make sure that any waste that are being generated there are adequately described in the facility's GRRs on the H1 site. And of course, subsection 5, no generator shall transfer a particular subject waste to a waste transportation system until the generator has obtained a generator registration document with a waste number for that waste. All right, so this can become somewhat problematic for us in the environmental consulting field, where we're doing remediation at sites, and occasionally we come across abandoned underground storage tanks, and now all of a sudden, we're sitting there with an old historical tank with maybe 5,000 gallons of gasoline on it. We have to go through the generator registration process on H1 in order to get a generator number and waste number before we can get a waste carrier to come to the site and actually remove that product. Okay. If a change that is required to be reported involves the variation of a subject waste or the production, collection, handling, and storage of a new waste, the generator shall not transfer the subject waste to a waste transportation system until the reissue of the generator registration document specifically addressing the change has been obtained. Waste carriers are very good at this. They generally will not pick up a waste if you do not have the appropriate generator registration report or waste number registered in H1. So they're kind of a fail-safe to the system, in that when you call them to come get some waste, that they will generally check your H1 registration to make sure that you are actually registered for that waste. Are there any emergency transport clauses or conditions where in the event of an emergency, the registration can be bypassed? Well, to a great degree, the introduction of H1 resolved that issue. Back before H1, where we were in a spill situation or we'd encountered a underground storage tank, there was a process that we had to go through in which we had to call the Spills Action Center and notify them that we have a waste that's been generated from either a spill or from a registration process, and that we need what was called at that point in time an emergency waste generator number and an emergency waste. So we would need an emergency generator number and an emergency waste number. Because stop and think, back in the day before H1, you had to do all this registration by mail. That wasn't practical when you were in an emergency situation. So they had this process, we would call Spills Action. They would then forward that information to the local district office, and they would contact you with an emergency waste generator number and waste code that we could then ship on. So HWIN, from that perspective, made it a lot easier and a lot quicker, because we could just go online, register the facility, and then register the waste code. So it's a half-hour process. Pay some fees, then you're good to go. Every generator shall use the generator registration number and applicable waste set out in the manual, and all transfers of subject waste under this regulation. So essentially, you're going to be using that on the waste manifests. Every generator shall keep a record of the subject waste disposed of at the waste generation facility, including the name, waste number, quantity, and disposition of the waste. And a record referred to as subject 8 may be disposed of after 2 years. So this gives you the requirement where a waste generator has to keep copies of his waste manifest on site for 2 years. And when we see Ministry of the Environment inspectors coming in to do, a waste audit, they will ask for copies of your waste manifest spanning the last 2 years to make sure that you have them all on site as required by Clause 9 that says you have to have them for 2 years. And when they do those types of inspections, in the last lecture we had, we looked at one of the inspection reports, and we could see that they brought with them the ministry's copy of your HWIN site, so they know which manifests you should have on site for within the last 2 year period. And this is a common area where our facilities do get dinged, because they don't have a good management system in place to handle the retention of these manifests in a way that if a Ministry of the Environment officer shows up, they can just they can produce them quickly. When any subject waste is retained at a facility for a period longer than 3 months, the generator, unless there is a waste disposal site certificate of approval or provisional certificate of approval in respect to the facility, shall submit a report to the regional director within 5 business days after the 3-month period, which report shall comply with the manual and shall include the name and waste number of the waste, the quantity involved, the manner in which it is stored, the reason for the retention, and the anticipated time and manner of disposal of the wastes. I will often tell people, I wish I had $1 for every one of these I've had to do, because it's a common area where facilities managed to get themselves dinged on. We did look at an example in my last lecture where this is exactly where the inspector issued them a notice of violation on, even though the facility had not had any waste. We're quite confident there was no waste that had been stored for in excess of 90 days. They could not demonstrate that to the officer, so they had to go down through this this process, and it can be a fairly significant and time-consuming process. And when you're dealing with smaller facilities, not the type of process they can navigate themselves, so they would normally end up having to retain people like myself to take care of it for them. So this requirement to not maintain waste on site for any more than 3 months without a certificate of approval can be really problematic. And this is in the regulation, and this is specifically there to stop facilities from accumulating vast quantities of wastes and then abandoning the site or going bankrupt. About 25 years ago, we did a project with the government of Ontario where they had leased a warehouse in downtown Toronto to somebody, and the person paid his first month's rent, but then he didn't pay his second or third, so they evicted him after the 3rd month. And then when the government representative went there were hundreds of gallons of 50-gallon drums that had been taken to that warehouse and had been just essentially abandoned there. So I can't stop it in all cases, but it theoretically should prevent most companies from accumulating large quantities of waste on site. And then they're becoming an issue with the disposal of that waste, especially if the company doesn't have the finances at that time to do the actual disposal. So every generator who transfers subject waste to a waste transportation system shall orally report to the director any transfer subject waste that the generator is not able within 4 weeks to confirm was delivered to the intended receiving facility or to another receiving facility approved to accept the waste. And this is done through the waste manifest system as well. Every waste manifest has 6 components to it. The waste generator for each shipment, he takes copy 1 and he retains that on site, on file for 2 years. The second copy he mails to the Ministry of the Environment. And then the other 4 copies go with the waste carrier, 2 of which should end up with the receiver, and the receiver is supposed to send 1 of them back to the generating facility. So if a generator does not get that copy back within 4 weeks, they are to report to the ministry that they were not able to confirm that the waste was received at the intended facility. And again, this is something that ministry inspectors look at, because when they want to look at your waste manifest for 2 years, you should essentially be handing them 2 copies for each waste shipment. The first is the copy that the generator retained. The second one is the copy that came back in the mail. And if you don't have that second copy for an inspection, you will get dinged in this clause because you did not notify the director that you could not confirm that the waste was received. And 12, in unusual circumstances such as a spill, a process operation or upset, or circumstances described in subsection 22, where a generator discovers that a generator registration number is needed to comply with this regulation in the disposal of subject waste, the regional director or the ministry may assign a generator registration number to accept a waste number identified by the generator. So that was the circumstances. Aaron asked the question, and I give him the answer. In the old days, we used to start this process by contacting the Spills Action Center, but over the last 7 years, we've done it exclusively through the electronic HWIN system. I guess if you were in an area where you for whatever reason you could not access the HWIN site, you could potentially still go that route. But as I mentioned, we now do it exclusively through the HWIN site. Okay, where a generator registration number is assigned, subsection 5 does not apply, and sections 1 and 2 shall be complied with within 90 days. Where a waste number is accepted, subsection 5 and 6 do not apply. And those are those earlier sections, that we looked at for the requirements to submit your initial generator registration reports and other steps. And this last one here, for the purpose of this section, liquid waste means that a waste of more than 150 millimeters using the test method for the determination of liquid waste set out in Schedule 5 of the regulation. So Aaron, he was at least able to tell us, it's a liquid waste if it fails a slump test. But the exact definition is if it slumps by more than 55 millimeters. Okay, so the registration guidance manual for generators of liquid, industrial, and hazardous waste. It's found at this web address. What I will do in a couple of minutes is I will post that link to the chat so that you guys can grab it for the assignment. But I will also post a copy of it in DC Connect, and I will post separately a copy of Figure 3, which is what you guys are going to use to walk yourself through the waste characterization process in your assignment. All right, so I'm going to stop it there because we're going to move on to waste carriers now, and I don't want to get 1 or 2 minutes into that. So we'll leave that for tomorrow. Does anybody have any questions that that you want to ask about any subject that we've touched on today? I've lost my. Oh, there we are. All right, so I just sent you that link to the guidance manual for waste generators. So you'll be using that in your assignment. So nobody has any questions? No. Okay. And I can't remember if I did this at the start of this this lecture or not, but trying to remember and get those feedback surveys completed and back to the college. We have 1 week left to get them done. So if you could fill them out and send them back, I would appreciate it. Okay, no questions? No? Okay, all right. So we'll terminate this now, and we'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 o'clock, bright and early tomorrow morning. Okay, thanks, guys.